There's no time for me to sit and feel sorry or feel bad. There's too much to do. I'll sometimes get discouraged, but the next task looms large. People have no idea what it is to preach week after week after week after week, year after year, decade after decade, to the same people who have recorded everything you've ever said. And then to speak in chapel at a college and chapel at a seminary and work on a book and do for me, this is the track the Lord has put me on. There's no I don't have time to sit and if I have those kinds of moments, fleeting as they may be, I always think of the Apostle Paul, or I think of some of my personal heroes. My mind often goes to William Carey when all of his manuscripts burned, or it goes to Tyndale, who is a particular treasure in my mind, who's sitting in prison about to die and wants somebody to bring him his needle and thread so he can sew up his leggings because he's cold. I've stood by Robert Morrison's grave and cried in China. So I think of, it's not a long process for me because there's just a relentless. I preach Sunday morning one message, Sunday night another message, and usually every week somewhere else another time. So, in one of our ministries. So I don't seem to have time to let those things get me down. And every new opportunity, when I prepare a message, I am so still to this day, if not more, infused with the thrill of what I've learned and the eagerness to preach that it drags me past whatever the. And I even when I preach a really dumb sermon, and all I want to do is hide somewhere, the sooner I can start working on next week, the better, because I will leave that behind and I will move into that new opportunity. And for me, it's just getting into the Word and digging down and discovering what I need to know for the next ministry.
The Lord's wired you a little differently.
Yeah, we'll take heart. Not everybody's like that.
I know that.
Yeah, and you're very fortunate. So here's one guy who gets really discouraged. And I got plenty of time to get discouraged in anything. I pray probably the prayer, keep me and preserve me, as often as I pray any prayer. And I mean keep me saved, because I think God uses means to cause us to persevere. And I mean keep me in the ministry. I don't want to be one of these short-lived people. And keep me married. Don't want to wreck it that way. And keep me. I pray that. Now unto him who is able to keep you, I pray that blessing down on me a lot. And the Lord has spared me. But stir in this. I'm 61. He's older than I am a little bit. We have passed through seasons, and there is something to men in midlife crisis. I remember sitting in, where was Ben Patterson pastor out there? Irvine? Yeah. So he's sitting in Ben Patterson's house. He's on vacation. He's the pastor of Irvine. He planted the church. And they gave us their house so if we'd preach for them on Sunday and have a little week's vacation there. And I remember, I was 40, sitting on the steps halfway through vacation, sobbing. Noel comes down the steps. What's wrong? I said, I don't have a clue. Sounds like PMS. I just said, I don't know if I want to stay. I don't know if I want. I don't have a clue why I'm so sad. And that season lasted several years, and the grace was that I could still function.
It lasted several years?
Mm-hmm. I've met people like him before. I had a church chairman named Roland Erickson, and Roland would ask me, define depression. He didn't have a clue. It was like Gazornenplatt. So if you don't know it, you don't know it. You're okay. Just stay there.
Well, I feel like I'm missing a great experience.
I was listening to an author the other day, and they said, "What's the best thing about writing?" And she said, "The last page." And so what's great about depression is the light at the end of the tunnel. Nobody enjoys being depressed in the middle of it. But one more thing, as far as solutions go, I have spent, goodness knows how much effort developing a theology of suffering. This conference exists to answer that question. I want to last. I want to stand. I want to get through the discouraging times. I want to help you not be fickle, wishy-washy, drop out, trade your life away, swap wives, leave jobs, trade churches. I just don't want you to be that way. So make a conference. And we're talking about this thing started tonight with these endless sufferings of the Apostle Paul. So he said, I go to Paul and I say, amen, me too. I look at I look at 2 Corinthians 1:9. We were so unbearably crushed. That was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. And I preach that to myself. Here I am feeling that way. I feel like, it's so nice to go to heaven right now. Just let me go to heaven. Noel can take care of Talitha. It'll all work out. Just let me go. And at that moment, if the answer comes back no, if your heart just keeps beating, then you have to do theology. And I'm wired that way anyway. I do theology. I say, God struck Paul down in order that he might not rely on himself, but on the God who raises the dead. He wanted him to be desperate. So you're desperate, so he must have a purpose for you. And I just preach myself through a theology of suffering back into, I hope, more usefulness. So just keep on working on your sovereignty of God peace and your evil of the world peace. That's the greatest issues in life. How can God be sovereign and there be so much horror in the world, including the horror in your own life that's making you so discouraged?
What encourages?
This man has known much suffering. It just doesn't tend to come from within. It comes from without.
I think it's not the things I feel, it's how that processes in me. Because all of the spiritual battles, all the disappointments, all the griefs, all the heartbreaks, I don't know, I'm wired to deal with those in a different way. I can't imagine just sitting and crying and not knowing why I was doing it. But that's not to say that I don't feel the same longings on the inside. It's how they get processed, I think. Because the spiritual battle for me is the same as it is for anyone. And I feel at this point in my life, in many ways, that I've escaped by the hair of my chinny chin chin. That I'm here, but there could have been 1,000 points at which, through my life, it all would have been ashes. It's not to say that that's not a reality or that I'm not aware of that. It's the way I deal with that is different. I don't know why. It's just the way I'm wired, I guess.
As you both think back on your ministries, or when you die someday, how do you want people to remember you? What do you want them to say about you? What do you want to be known for?
Do you ever think about that?
Yes.